Welcome back to Burned Notice, the series dedicated to analyzing Michael Weston and his team. If you're new to the series, there's a link in the description down below to catch you up. This episode begins with Mike doing armed setups, and as paranoid as Mike is, not just in this episode, but in all of the episodes previously, it is weird to think that he would keep the door unlocked. Sam shows up and seemingly doesn't have to unlock anything. It is very weird, especially since Philip Cowan sent an assassin literally a couple of episodes ago. But anyway, Sam walks in and gets startled by Mike waving a gun in his face. Which I mean makes sense. If my friend pulled a gun on me, I'd probably be a little bit upset as well. Also, Sam is cheating on his diet, proposed by his lover, which is never brought up again. However, during this meeting, Mike reminds Sam the lengths that Philip Cowan will go in order to get to Mike, but also Sam has a new job, which Mike has to pass on due to his life being a little too complicated. As this meeting ends, Mike gets a text from Cowan in order to meet. Sam gets invited as backup. During the stakeout, Sam gets a little antsy about Cowan not showing up, and Mike moves to where he believes Cowan is, where he finds a card left by Cowan. This is when Mike gets a first look at Philip Cowan and informs Mike the meetings are between him and Mike only, no backup. Cowan leaves and Mike meets with Sam and Fee back at the loft in order to go over Cowan and explain why they don't just meet. This is because Cowan distrusts Mike and vice versa. Sam then excuses himself to meet with his client, Jillian, who informs Sam of her job and how she is being blackmailed into allowing drugs to be moved through the company unchecked. However, not only Jillian is being blackmailed, but also Melissa, one of her co-workers, who is scared to talk to Sam. However, they do get a little bit of information to work with. Next, Mike responds to a call from Maddie about a weird phone call.
All he said was Van Buren Avenue, and then he hangs up.
And Mike tries to act coy, but Miss Weston sees right through this little charade that Mike has. Then Nate shows up due to Maddie's weird phone call.
It's all a big mystery.
She decided to circle the wagons. And of course, Nate begs for money from Mike. Next at the Carlito, Sam hires Fee to help with this client. Sam found some info on Melissa's mystery man, who is the blackmailer, and also her lover, that Melissa used to cheat on her husband. Afterwards, Mike is on Van Buren Avenue, looking for another clue in order to meet with Cowan. This is where Mike finds a guy in a very interesting way. The guy is reading a tourist guide to Madison, Wisconsin. That's brilliant. M.W. Michael Weston. The showrunners did a really good job of making it believable that Mike would find this guy, but nobody else would bother him. Anyway, that guy leaves Mike a note to set up a meeting, but only divulges the weekday and time with a cutout of one of Mike's missions, most likely to inform Mike where to actually go. This is when Sam and Fee go to the bar, and it's highly unlikely that Melissa met the blackmailer there. Mostly because the bar is a kind of men's-only bar, which should have been a red flag that something was not right. But Sam charms the barkeep and the fellow patrons and find info about the blackmailer. That's Ray Wagner. Then Fee and Sam confront Ray, where he tries to deck Sam, and while Fee and Sam are asking questions, they put the pieces together that Melissa isn't a victim, but the blackmailer, who is working with her husband. This is when Sam meets with Jillian in order to explain what's going on, and how they're going to enlist the help with Mike, who is fixing the charger, which is a great attention to detail that most TV shows would have glanced over. The fact that last episode his charger windshield exploded. Anyway, Sam needs Mike to pass as a Green Beret in order to talk to Melissa's husband. basically to scare him to back off of Jillian. Next, we see Kent, Melissa's husband, leave a gun range to find Mike leaned up against his truck, forcing Kent to become slightly offensive. But Mike quells this by pitching a thriving business opportunity. Mike also uses his info on Kent to intimidate him, but also tries to influence him to work for Mike, even leaving his card to Kent. Next, Sam is wiring a duplicate phone to listen to Kent's conversations, and while Fee is planting the listening device, Sam is distracting Melissa, and this is where my suspension of disbelief has to kick in. It's believable that Fee swaps the SIM card in the phones in order to make the new phone have the old number. That makes sense. However, what doesn't make sense is that the new phone doesn't have the contacts, the messages, the phone log, the wallpapers, just the little things that would make Kent a little bit suspicious. Plus, he is kind of a drug dealer. This could be one of his burner phones that could go dark sooner than they would like. Anyway, Mike listens in to what Kent is saying and hears about his meeting with him. As Mike is informing Sam about this, Maddie bursts into the loft, yelling to Mike about Nate carrying a gun and protecting her. Maddie asks to speak to Mike alone, where he informs her that the situation is extremely complicated, and we get to see a little bit more of the family dynamic between Mike and Maddie. She really doesn't understand what is going on with Mike. However, as the loving mother she is, she does want to know more about him. Unfortunately, Mike needs to keep this a secret from her. It's Mike's ability to compartmentalize that puts a strain on their relationship. This happens multiple times in the series. This is one of the biggest first times that it happens. However, Maddie leaves unsatisfied.
Get yourself some furniture, Michael. I didn't raise you to live in a warehouse and eat off a bench.
Then Mike meets with Kent to discuss the details of the job. This is where Kent gets very defensive about Mike and even pulls a gun on him, which Mike dispatches rather quickly, which is even more impressive because Kent is a Marine. Anyway, after the fight, Mike leaves with another hole in the windshield of the Charger. Back at the loft, Jillian hears Kent's plan for her is to be unalived, and that Kent is extremely concerned about Mike's role. After that, Sam informs her she needs to play ball with Kent, basically in order to stay alive. This is where Sam is watching Jillian, Fee is monitoring the bug, and Mike is waiting to meet Cowan. That is until things get a little too interesting when Kent alludes to putting something on Jillian's car, forcing Mike to abandon his meeting with Cowan, but not before leaving a clue to reschedule. And this scene is kind of weird. Why couldn't Fee handle this situation by herself with Sam? I know Sam doesn't have signal for his phone, but Fee and Mike show up at the same time, so why couldn't she have just met Sam? Anyway, Sam watches Jillian load the drugs into a white van, and before the van leaves completely, Mike and Fee arrive. This is where Mike comes up with a plan. He sends Sam to the guard shack as he climbs the fence to defuse the bomb on Jillian's car. And this scene always leaves me holding my breath. The editing and the music is just perfect. It really induces that grade A suspense, just top notch. To right before Jillian starts her car, you just know that Mike is not gonna make it, but then he does. Back at the loft, Jillian is presented with the knowledge she almost died, and they get Jillian out of town until the smoke clears. Meanwhile, Mike and the team plan to gather evidence they would need to take Kent down. After this meeting, Fee and Mike discuss why he's doing this dance with Cowan, and this angers Fee because she cares for him and wants to be with him, and if Mike goes back to being a full-time spy, she won't have a place in Mike's life, which is a good bit of character development in such a very small scene, and it does work pretty well. Next, Sam and Fee get set up to record the buy in order to bust Kent, who shows up and is waiting for the buyers. Meanwhile, Mike is waiting at the meeting place place. However, he gets a phone call from Cowan informing him that he needs to go back to the first meeting spot in 10 minutes. So Mike has to run a mile or so in a suit in under 10 minutes, which understandably is pretty impressive. However, back at the buy, Melissa and Kent have a small disagreement. Right before they're about to leave, they get blown up by an RPG. The buyers are the ones that killed them, and Sam gets kidnapped. Talk about your bad days. Also, Fee gets chased until the only option she has is to jump off a bridge. This is a great way to increase the tension for this episode. Next, Mike finally gets to meet with Cowan face to face. This is where he reveals that he wasn't the only one who burned Mike. Unfortunately, there is an entire organization, and as soon as Cowan reveals this, he gets shot to silence Cowan before he can reveal anything like management or Carla or possibly Vaughn. But these are future things that I'm not going to worry about until we get to it. However, the person who took the shot puts Mike's back against the wall because immediately the police show up. This is where Mike has to escape, and thankfully he gets some help from Nate to get a clean getaway. When Nate rescues Mike and brings him back to the loft, Mike debriefs a tad, then notices plenty of people that could potentially be watching him, and as they're leaving, Fee calls to inform Mike about the busted drug buy, and she gives him just enough information in order to find her and how Sam is captured, ending the episode with "to be continued." This episode is the perfect way to begin the finale of the first season. There is so much suspense and how Mike is closer to the truth, but also simultaneously so far away from it. And this goes to the testament of the showrunners who at least let us know what was going to happen in a week's time, unlike other shows that would make viewers wait for months to find out what actually happened at the end of the episode, which really is something that I enjoy about this spy drama, is that they leave us with more questions than answers, a problem I have closer to the end of the series, but we'll get to that later. This episode treated us to the back and forth of Mike and Cowan paralleling the relationship with the client, making us believe that there was a double cross. However, the following week we will see the part 2 to this episode. However, if you are craving my content, check out Inside Criminal Minds, the series that looks at an FBI team who uses psychology to catch the bad guy. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.